All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm so pleased to be here. I will start by apologizing for not speaking in Chinese. I've been here for a week. I'm very impressed with the quality of education, the friendliness of everybody here, and I'm very disappointed in my ability to learn Chinese in 1 week. So forgive me as I speak to you today in English. I first want to say thank you to my host, Professor Ta Wei, Professor Yu Lun, and Ms. Sabrina for their friendliness and welcome and support. You'll see the title of my presentation up here, which is Vision and Trends in Open and Online Education. What I mean to do is to share with you information about what's happening in other parts of the world. Not because this is what you should do. You have an excellent educational system. You're doing great things with open courseware and MOOCs. But there might be some ideas that you find valuable. I'll draw most of my examples from the areas of the world I know best, which are Europe, Canada, and the United States. My home is in beautiful Southern California. So some of my examples will come from California, but I'll try to take my examples from the rest of the world that I know. You'll see here just a few of the roles that I play in the global open education movement. I've been fortunate to serve as president of the board and current treasurer for the global organization, the Open Education Consortium. And we are so pleased that the Taiwan Open Course and Education Consortium is a member, and many institutions, universities here in Taiwan are members. We're very grateful for that, and you are very well represented by your colleagues, Professor Yu Lan and Professor Ta Wei, who are active in the global world of open education, so thank you to them. We sponsor many activities and organize many activities in a year. The big ones I would like you to watch for are Open Education Week in the spring, every year. We organize, and our members organize activities to celebrate and to teach about open education all over the world. Most of these activities take place online, so you can participate from anywhere in the world. Last year, 80,000 people around the world participated in one of our activities during Open Education Week. It's a great way to start learning about open education. We also host the annual global conference dedicated to open education every year. This past year, it was in Delft, Netherlands, again, where you were well represented. We also award and recognize excellence and innovation in scholarship and academic achievement around open education. This year, we were so pleased to recognize a professor from Taiwan. So again, you are very well represented in the international arena. I'm going to now proceed to make some statements that might seem ridiculous, that might seem a little crazy. I like this idea that whenever we talk about the future, we need to be a little crazy and a little ridiculous. If you think about curing disease, it sounds ridiculous that we will cure cancer. If you think about people flying through the air in airplanes, 100 years ago, that seemed ridiculous and crazy. The mobile phones that we have 20 years ago, 30 years ago, those seemed ridiculous and crazy. So I'm going to share some crazy ideas with you that are actually starting to happen all over the world. First of all, here's a real crazy idea that we want to achieve around the world. We guarantee educational access to everyone. Everyone can get an education all over the world. In fact, this is a goal stated by the United Nations. How many of you are familiar with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? These are a series of ridiculous goals that governments all over the world have agreed to pursue. For example, no poverty. That sounds pretty crazy, but pretty good. Gender equality, equality between men and women. Again, sounds pretty crazy, but it's pretty good. Governments all over the world working together with the United Nations are pursuing these goals and pursuing ways to move these goals into government policy. One of these Sustainable Development Goals, number 4, states we want to ensure inclusive and quality education for all and promote lifelong learning. Again, governments around the world have promised to take action around this. Our global organization, the Open Education Consortium, is working with UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, to put into action items the pursuit of this goal through open education, so that there will be next summer, we hope, the United Nations General Assembly will formally adopt and formally support the use of open education as a way to achieve this ridiculous, crazy goal. So what are we talking about with open education? Open educational resources, which refer to the things that students use, the things that teachers use to teach with, the things that students use to learn with. OERs are defined as freely available learning materials. Simple as that. That can be copied, shared, and edited so everyone can learn. How many of you in here are students? How many are students? A few students. Everybody else is, how many of you are teachers or professors somehow? Great, okay, thank you. So, the reality today in the world is that information is everywhere. The computing information that you have in your mobile phone and the information you have access to with your mobile phone is greater, probably, than all the books in this university. And you can probably access that information a lot faster. Open educational resources take advantage of this overflow of information and try to create an ecosystem around learning for all. Open education generally, the broader concept, refers to resources, so the teaching and learning materials, the tools, for example, our mobile phones to access the internet, and practices, the way we teach, the way we interact with materials, in a way that share knowledge and information to improve education worldwide. Simple as that. All this stuff is out there. It's available everywhere. How do we use it to good effect? The benefits of open education are so numerable, it's hard for me to list them all on one page. I'll talk more about these in detail. Right now, I'll focus on supporting legal and ethical uses of information, reducing costs for students, supporting your local economy, allowing for local contextualization, increasing academic performance, increasing access to information, promoting collaboration, and increasing completion of degrees. Sounds pretty good, all that. Is anybody against any of these things? Right? We all like these things. One of the foundational pieces of open education is the idea of a Creative Commons license, or an open license that permits us to share materials legally. How many of you are familiar with Creative Commons? Does that name just a little bit? Okay, so I'll take a minute to explain the idea. Traditional copyright, we have copyright laws in Taiwan, correct? So traditional copyright is a binary proposition. It's either on or it's off. Either I own this and you can't touch it, it's mine, or nobody owns it. The words are so old, the creative work is so old that there's no ownership. It's either on or off. Creative Commons is a legal form of ownership and permission that goes on top of copyright. And it says, I own this. It's mine. I created it, but please use it. You can use it. You can share it. You can change it. Just give me credit. Please use my name and help people learn about me, that I'm a creator. But it's legal to use. And this idea of legal use is really important. Now, maybe this never happens in Taiwan, but in the United States, sometimes it happens that a professor will prepare lecture notes or lecture slides, and sometimes the professor will steal material from another professor and not tell anybody, not tell his students. Include images that he found on Google. Include quotations from another work and not give proper citation or attribution. Probably doesn't happen here, but it happens in the United States all the time. Of course, if a student would come in and give me work that he stole from somebody else, I would say that's a terrible student. There will be a terrible penalty for that. Creative Commons licenses helps us avoid stealing work from each other. If I create something, I give it to the world with a Creative Commons license, and you can use it and reuse it. So all of my slides here are openly licensed. Everyone can use them. I'm using them from other people. If you pay attention, you'll see underneath all of my images, there are citations. So open education helps us to stay legal and stay ethical. That's a good thing. Open education also helps us to save money, helps you, students, to save money. This is an image from a textbook that is produced by an organization at Rice University in the United States. Rice University is a highly ranked engineering and science school in Texas. And they produce very high quality textbooks. The textbooks live online. They're free to access. They cost you no money to use. And they have a Creative Commons license so you can change them. You can edit them. And we'll talk more about why that's important in just a minute. I went to a university bookstore here the other day, and I was horrified to see that the books, most of the books in the bookstore were American books. And one of the books I saw, one of the textbooks I saw was a calculus textbook. I don't remember who the publisher is. And it cost around 1,400 new Taiwanese dollars. And I thought, gosh, $1,400, that's not a fortune. It's not free either. But if you start adding that up for all the students who have to buy that book, let's say you have 300 students taking a calculus class at your university. Just for one class, then, that's 420,000 Taiwanese dollars that are being spent on that calculus textbook that is produced by probably an American publisher. So, you know, the American economy, my economy, says, thank you very much, you're creating jobs for us. Hooray, we're taking $420,000 out of your country for one class. I imagine there are more classes than just one. Do the simple math. How many millions and millions and millions of dollars are you giving to my country to create jobs every time you use an American textbook? Thank you. My economy benefits, but I don't really understand why you do that. I don't quite understand why you want to send all that money out of the country, especially at a time when publishers are making really high quality open educational resource textbooks or open textbooks that are available for free online right now. If you teach a calculus class, you can use this book today. If you're a student, don't buy the textbook that your professor asks you to buy. Go online and use this book for free. And they have many more subjects. Another reason why it's nice to have an openly licensed material with the Creative Commons license that you can edit and change legally is so that you can contextualize the material to reflect your local culture and your local values and your local needs. This is the cover of a Polish textbook from the same open textbook publisher at Rice University. They translated, or a group in Poland with the support of the Ministry of Education has translated these open textbooks into Polish. So this is a physics textbook. So when Polish students read this textbook, they can probably read Polish names. They can probably see examples of things happening in Poland, because when the material has a Creative Commons license, you can change it. You can change the names. You can change the street names. You can change the place names so that they're local. So Polish students see that Polish people can do science. If I walk through the bookstore here at the university, I see books that tell Taiwanese students that only Americans can do science. That's kind of strange for me. So again, there are open textbooks that have an open license on them right now that you can adapt, you can change, you can modify legally, and one benefit can be that Taiwanese students see themselves in your books and see themselves as doing science and doing good work. We know also in the United States and Canada, from many, many, many research studies, that OER improves academic performance. These are results from a study that compared 20,000 students who were taking classes with OER and 20,000 students, or with other students who were not using OER in their classes. And this study found that when OER is being used, the grades for all students go up. The performance goes up 8%. In the United States, we have many part-time students. Many students are working, they're taking care of families, so they're not going full-time as students. The part-time students, when they used OER, their performance increased 28%. But it's not because OER is magic. It simply means because the material is free and because the material is current, students have access to the most current and relevant learning materials there are. If there's a change in science, you can change the textbook and update it with the most important new information. You don't have to wait for the publisher 2 years from now to give you the new information. And professors, I'm sorry to tell you, sometimes your students do not buy the books. Sometimes they don't have the books, right? We know that. We also know that OER increases progress, moving from one semester to another semester to another semester and completing the degree to get out into society, get a job, start contributing to society. These are results from a recent study in the United States that compared 5,000 students using OER with 11,000 students not using OER. So pretty big numbers. And found that when the students were using OER, the progress from one semester to the next semester increased 16%. So more students are sticking with it. More students are moving along because they have access to the learning materials and the most important, relevant new information. In the United States, this is not some crazy small movement, nor is it in Canada, nor is it in Western Europe. These are logos of universities in the United States that are working together. Faculty from these universities are working together to gather and review open textbooks that have been produced. They're publishing peer review of open textbooks so that when you choose this kind of material as a professor, you know what your colleagues think of it. Your colleagues have reviewed it and decided whether it's good enough to use or not. Here's an example of a rubric that's being used. I know it's a lot of words. We won't spend too much time here. But there are tools and rubrics and structures in place with all of these universities that permit faculty and professors to work together to conduct peer review of this openly published open textbooks. Also, this is not a strange little experiment. This is a press release from Rice University in Texas that produces many of the open textbooks. They just told us in August that 48% of colleges, or 2.2 million students in the United States, are this year using these textbooks. So at half of all the American colleges and universities, at least one professor is using one of these open textbooks. So again, it's not some small, strange little thing. Of course, I'll share a reminder that the idea of open education and open courseware came from MIT. Obviously, the top-ranked university in the world for many, many, many years. Back in 2002, I think, MIT decided, you know, there's this new thing called the internet, and there's this new thing called Creative Commons licensing. What could we do if we put them together? Could we do a better job of part of our mission? And part of our mission is to disseminate knowledge, share knowledge with the world. So they digitized their courses. They started with open courseware and creating video lectures of all their professors and all their classes. And now they've added the course documents, the notes, the presentations, sometimes the assessments. So right now, or last month in July, 2 months ago, there were 2,400 courses on the MIT OpenCourseWare website that you can use, that students use all the time. They have in July, they had 263 million visits and 164 million unique visitors. That's incredibly impressive. But what's more important to me is what they found when they asked students, what did the OpenCourseWare do for you? MIT, like NTU, is one of the top universities in the world. They need to attract the best students. They find that the best students often discover MIT through the OpenCourseWare. They're really smart students in high school. They're bored. They're trying to find something else to learn with. And when they ask their students, what did it do for you that you could use MIT material before you got here? 92% of their students said they feel more confident. They're ready to succeed. They're coming into class better prepared to succeed right away because they've touched the material, they've seen the material from the best university in the world, and they can understand it, or they're motivated by it. So that's a great outcome. Other highly ranked universities are also continuing to produce open courseware and open educational resources and open textbooks. Stanford, for example, Stanford University in my home, California, they share their engineering curriculum online. You can go and watch all the video lectures in OpenCourseWare from their engineering program. UC Irvine, also a top-ranked institution in California, has a big project around chemistry and sharing all of their chemistry materials online. UC Davis, also a top science university. They're not just sharing videos, not just OpenCourseWare, but they're producing open textbooks in chemistry that are highly interactive. There's a lot of interaction, and you can view the experiments and conduct experiments there with the UC Davis chemistry material. We also see open education coming more deeply into top universities. This is from the University of British Columbia, number 2 ranked university in Canada, number 40 ranked in the world. They have a policy, just like here at your universities, if professors want to be promoted, they have to publish and publish and publish and publish. But they recently officially added to their tenure and promotion policy that open education repositories and resources count. So if you publish open educational resources, or you publish your materials in an open access journal, and we'll talk about that in a minute, that it counts for tenure and promotion at the top university in Canada. So again, this is not some strange little idea. Here's another crazy idea, or crazy sounding idea, that we're pursuing in the United States and Canada. And that is, we think there's enough high quality OER in the world that we can build an entire degree program where students never touch publisher materials. They're only using open educational resources. We refer to this as a Z degree. Z for zero, zero cost, zero textbook cost for students. There are 3 big projects right now in the United States. One project is a group of 38 colleges that you'll see on top in the states that are highlighted. 38 colleges that are working together to build 38 degree programs so students never have to touch a commercial textbook or commercial work. In British Columbia also, BC Campus is their educational technology team. They're building 3 zero textbook cost degree programs in British Columbia. And on the left in California, where I live, I'm leading the state project in California that is building 33 degree programs with 23 colleges. We're going to affect millions and millions and millions of students all over the United States. We also know that partners at California State University are also building Z degrees so that students can complete their entire program of study at all of these institutions only using open educational resources. The great thing, though, it's great for our students, but the great thing for you, this is all openly licensed. All of this work will have a Creative Commons license. So in 1 year's time, in 2 years' time, you can take all those materials for free and legally. You can contextualize them for your culture here. You can translate them into Taiwanese if you wish. All the materials are going to be out there. Another crazy idea, and I know this is very American, we think we should listen to students. It sounds kind of ridiculous in a university that we would listen to our customers, but we do. And our customers in the United States and in Canada tell us again and again that the textbook costs are horrible. National survey tells us that half of all students take fewer or different classes because of the cost of textbooks. And I know your conditions are different. I know the conditions are different in Taiwan. But in the United States, half of students take fewer classes. 2/3 of students, surprise, choose just to not buy the materials. I guess the good news is at the bottom, students are really worried. This really causes our students a lot of stress that they can't access the learning materials. 9.5 out of 10 report that they're concerned, that they're worried. Students have a very strange reaction sometimes when we tell them about free textbooks. They can't quite believe it. I'd love to share this image. This is the marketing piece that we use at College of the Canyons to tell our students about open educational resources and free textbooks. I really love this image because it was created by one of our students. And of course, it's openly licensed, so you can take the image and adapt it to your own needs. Students at College of the Canyons, my institution, when they are in classes using OER, they think it's pretty darn good. They're very satisfied with it. 92% of our students say the quality is as good as other material, the traditional material that they're working with. We're also very fortunate in the United States and Canada that many of these efforts have been supported by our government. by our governments, both by the national governments and by the state governments. I won't go through the specific numbers here, but suffice it to say that there's a lot of money from the governments coming into these efforts to create open textbooks, to pay faculty to work on them. We compensate authors. We honor their work. We engage students in the efforts. We build out technology tools to support these efforts. We do trainings all over the United States and Canada to make sure that faculty and students are learning about this option. So great thanks to the governments in Canada and the United States for supporting these efforts. Another crazy, ridiculous idea that's gaining momentum is the idea that the public should be able to access the research that it pays for. A professor, let's say that a professor here, this is a public university, right? This is a state university, national university. You publish an article in a journal, then in order for your students to read that article, your university has to pay for a subscription for that journal. Is that right? And in the United States, every year we have conversations about which journals are we going to cut because they're so expensive. But you think about this for a second. You're working for the government, so really you're working for the people of Taiwan. You're publishing an article, but then the people of Taiwan have to pay again so that they can read the article. Didn't they already pay you to produce it? Sounds kind of strange that the people are paying 2 times, 3 times, maybe 4 times. Maybe they paid for your education. Maybe they paid for your research lab. Maybe they paid for you to go to a conference where you learned about something. And then at the end, nobody can read about your research because it's in a journal that's too expensive. But the people have paid 3 or 4 times. So there is a large movement in Europe, especially. In the United States and Canada, yes, but very strong in Europe. There's a movement towards creating open access journals and open access publications. Online journals that are peer-reviewed, faculty are involved, but they are all open access with a Creative Commons license so that anyone can read them, anyone can download the research, anyone can download the data sets, and the public can see them and use them. Just a couple weeks ago, September, the European Union announced, along with the national governments of Austria, France, Ireland, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Slovenia, Sweden, and the UK. Wow. I don't know if any country is left out. Basically, all of the European Union is saying by 2020, if you researchers get money from us, you have to publish in an open access journal. You can't only give your research to Elsevier. You have to publish in an open access journal. And by the way, for those of you who know Elsevier, the journal publisher, the day after this announcement, their stock price went down 20%. So this is huge. Most scholars and researchers at universities in Europe are supported by the European Union in one way or another. So all of their output will be freely available by 2020. And that's great news for you. You'll be able to access it. You'll be able to use it. We see this in the United States as well as policies coming from professors, coming from the faculty, we call them faculty senates, the governing bodies of the faculty, at some pretty impressive universities. Harvard University, Caltech, MIT, University of California. So University of California, that means Berkeley, UCLA. They have policies that require their own professors, when they publish a research article, the first copy must go into a repository held by the institution, and it must be openly licensed so that anyone can access it for free. If they want, later on, they can publish it in a traditional journal if they want. But one copy has to stay with the university. Are we good? One copy has to stay with the university so that everyone can access it forever. In the state of California, the whole state has said this. If you're getting any money from the state to do your research, you have to publish the research output in an open access journal. Here's another ridiculous statement. If we think about teaching and learning, and if we think about open education and open courseware, I want to share some ideas or some trends about online teaching and learning in the United States as well. With all this talk about open courseware, sometimes, and again, probably not in Taiwan, but sometimes in the United States when I've looked at open courseware or I've looked at some MOOCs, it seems as though the class is being taught by a robot. I don't see any human interaction. Again, probably not in Taiwan, but it sometimes happens in the United States. So I like to say if you can be replaced by a robot, maybe you should be replaced by a robot. Now again, this would never happen in a Taiwanese university. All right, everybody's still awake in here. Once upon a time, people thought open courseware and MOOCs would change this. If students are too sleepy in the lecture hall, well, maybe they'll go home and they'll learn. They'll be comfortable at home. But surprise, this happens too. Just because, you know, if the lecture is boring here and you make a video of a boring lecture, it's still going to be boring, right? So in the United States now, the big conversation with online learning is around humanizing the experience for students. How do we tell students, I, the professor, I'm a person? These are a couple of friends of mine who are starting a class last week. They share a video with their students every week. Sometimes their kids are in the background. Sometimes the dog is barking. Sometimes the light is on, the light is off, they talk about the weather, but every week they make a real short video. Hi, I'm here, I'm a human being. This is my life. Now let's go to work in the online class. And there are many different ways in which we can humanize ourselves in our classes. We can make sure that we talk to students by names when they come here. I know as a professor, I know it's difficult to learn everybody's name, but you can do it. And you can do it online as well. So the big movement in the United States with online learning is humanizing it. And when we talk about online learning in the United States, what I mean is a small course, not hundreds and hundreds of students. Typically a small course that has interaction at the core, interaction between the faculty and the student. The interaction might be delayed, it might be live, it might be that we're live texting or messaging right now, but it might be a video that you're going to watch later. The key to the interaction is that it's taking place in a regular and effective way. So that means every week the professor is doing something, or every day, but some schedule. The professor is doing something to let the students know that I'm here and we're talking somehow. This is really important in the United States right now because the business of higher education is in trouble. The traditional business, the traditional lecture hall model of education is in big trouble. This year, for the 6th year in a row, the number of students at traditional universities went down. We expect by 2025, the number of students will go down 15% more. So professors like you who work in a traditional situation should be a little bit worried about their business. The only place that's growing, though, the only segment of American higher education that's growing is online, the type of online class I described. Last year, online enrollments, the number of online students grew for the 14th year in a row. The increase this year was 5.6%. And on-campus students fell again by 6.5%. So if you're a professor in an American university and you want to make sure that your job is secure, probably you're teaching online or you're learning how to teach online, because we do have training. It's almost always the case now that professors need to have a certification, an additional certification, before they teach online, so they know how to conduct the interaction, they know how to use the tools. So this is what your colleagues in the United States are seeing as a big, big trend. We also see that the students are taking online classes in kind of a mixed way. 17% are taking some online, but 15% are taking only online classes. They never come to a traditional campus. I know at my institution, a student can pay, a student can use a library, a student can get tutoring, a student can participate in a club, et cetera, without ever setting foot on campus. So again, this is a big trend that's happening. And it's happening at the elite institutions too. It's happening at the Ivy League schools as well. University of Pennsylvania just last week, that they're going to offer a fully online bachelor's degree. And University of Pennsylvania is an Ivy League school, so that's the first for an Ivy League, first bachelor's online for an Ivy League. But Johns Hopkins and Columbia University, they have 10 or 15 master's programs completely online. Students never have to go to those universities, never have to physically go to those universities. If you want a master's in computer science from Columbia University, you want a master's in data science from Johns Hopkins, you never have to go to campus. Cornell has a master's in engineering online, also an Ivy League school. Berkeley has a master's in data science completely online. So this is not only a trend for younger students, it's a trend, and second level or third level universities, this is also a trend for the Ivy League. So it's happening everywhere. What we also see is the creation of a whole ecosystem around online students. So I said faculty often have to be trained now. So there are training programs so that professors can learn about being good human online teachers. In addition, institutions are building out an infrastructure to support the students. How do students use the library? How do students get tutoring? How do students participate in clubs? And how does a student know she is a good candidate for an online class? How does a student know she's going to be successful? Playing on your phone is different than being a student, right? Playing video games is not the same as being a student. So how do you know? So there are training programs for students as well to let them know what kinds of skills they need, what they should think about before they sign up for an online class. Some institutions also put online classes and MOOCs together with their entire strategy for the university. Our friends at the Technical University of Delft, TU Delft, ranked number 50 in the world, number 18 in engineering and technology. They see that MOOCs lead students to their online classes. Their online classes lead students to become traditional students. Traditional students complete the university and they want lifelong learning. Then they take online classes, then they take MOOCs, and so on. So TU Delft has done a fine job of embedding this whole idea into their strategic vision for the university. They're not closing their physical campus. They've got a wonderful physical campus. But they're using MOOCs and online classes as a way to bring students through that physical campus experience and to recruit students. On the topic of MOOCs, I know MOOCs are still very popular here in Taiwan, and I know NTU is a leader in MOOCs here. In the United States, just share with you that there has been growth. Now, this is the percentage of US universities offering MOOCs. 12% are offering MOOCs in the United States. But 68% of universities in the United States have no plans to offer a MOOC. It's not in their vision. It's not in their future. And it's kind of interesting to think about. The only growth sector of American education is online. So schools, universities are definitely offering online classes. But the way in which they're doing it is not the MOOC route. They're not adding MOOCs that are based on video and have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students. They're offering online classes that are based on interaction, based on the professor being human for the students. But I think the idea of MOOCs, though, has brought, or the MOOC movement has brought a really significant idea to the mainstream, and that's the idea of what we call badges. Digital credentials, digital certificates that you can put on your LinkedIn page, you can put on your online profile once you complete a MOOC or you complete one learning experience. I learned how to write in Python. I learned how to do this research project. I learned a language. And you can get a little certificate or a little badge to put on your online profile. Recruiters can use those then to search for new employees because they're looking for specific skills. So MOOCs have brought this idea to the mainstream, that the credential can be separate from the university. People can learn things, people can prove that they learn things, but it doesn't have to be from a traditional university. So what does this mean? Here are some long quotes, but I think they're worth reading. The first quote is from Google, from their person in charge of hiring people. When you look at people who don't go to school and make their way in the world, those are exceptional human beings. And we should do everything we can to find those people and have them work here. They're saying Google doesn't care if you have a university diploma. That's okay with them. Another company, Ernst & Young, which is a big consulting company, management consulting company, financial consulting company, they say academic qualifications will still be taken into account and indeed will remain an important consideration when assessing candidates, but will no longer act as a barrier. So again, if you have a university degree, that's great, but it's not required. We still want to talk to you as a job candidate if you don't have a university diploma. And part of that comes from this, from the badges, I think, and from the MOOC experience, that people are learning outside the university, and they have a way to show their learning. So in my mind, the traditional university world looks like this. Here we are in this beautiful closed room. It's like a closed box. All the information that students want is inside this university box. All of the interaction that they want is inside this box. Most importantly, the credential, the diploma, the proof that they're ready to get a job, they can only get it from us. That's what it used to look like. This is what it's starting to look like. Inside that box, we're kind of the old-fashioned information, the old-fashioned credential. But information is everywhere. Interaction is everywhere. And now credentials are beginning to be everywhere. Khan Academy will give you lots of badges, and you can show that you've learned something. Right? So we're no longer at the center of the learning process. So it's something that we really need to keep in mind here at the university. So I will close with this second favorite quote of mine. In general, I think we tend to under or overestimate the effect of a technology in the short term. We get very excited about new things and we think it's going to change the world, but it doesn't change the world right away. But I think over the long term, we underestimate the impact. For example, with the way that MOOCs have separated credentials from traditional universities. And I think that online education and open educational resources, open access publishing, open licensing, I think these are trends that over the long term will significantly change the way we are educating our societies. We certainly see it in Europe and North America now. So what can you do? Learn about open educational resources. You can listen to your students, publish in open access journals, and support the Taiwan Open Course and Education Consortium. I'm so grateful to my friends for inviting me here. It's an honor. You're doing great work here in Taiwan. I don't mean to suggest that you should change, but I want to make you aware of some things that are happening in other parts of the world. I'd be happy to take questions now, or you can find me at these locations, and I'd be happy to engage in discussion with you as well.
可以开始提问，那提问可以用中文来发问，那我们有翻译会把大家的问题就是翻给他听，那他会用英文来回复这样子。
Hi, my name is Michael Tsai. I'm an associate professor at the Computer Science Department here in National Taiwan University. So I have two questions. The first question is doing online open education, let's say courses or resources, sometimes at the university level can be considered as a way to spend money to outside students instead of to students enroll in the university. So this creates kind of a concern for some of the management people. So I'm wondering what's your comments on that? How do we convince them to, let's say, spend some of, at least part of their resources to build more, let's say, courses that are open to the public? So that's my first question. The second question is a little bit lower level. When you are trying to convince a professor to, let's say, spend time developing course materials for open courses, MOOCs, or maybe open courseware, one of the biggest problems they encounter is in their current materials, they use a lot of IP materials. So it becomes a bar for them to develop this type of courses. And what are your suggestions to circumvent that obstacle so that they can really be willing to spend time doing that? So that's my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those questions. Great questions. Certainly questions that people in the United States ask themselves all the time. So first, if I understand correctly, how can we encourage management at a university to invest resources in developing more open material and open courses when sometimes the university sees that as taking away resources from our real students? Is that an accurate way of thinking about it? Well, I really like this example from TU Delft. They've thought deeply about where both openly licensed materials, but also open to the public, where that fits into their strategic vision. First of all, they understand their mission, just like MIT. Their mission is to share knowledge with the world. So if the institution takes that seriously, that's one place to start. But of course, sharing knowledge with the world does not pay your salary, right? TU Delft sees MOOCs and open courses to the public as a way of making the world aware of the brand, building the brand, and bringing in top students from around the world in the United States and also in Europe. Because of the change to our business, we need international students. So developing and releasing open material to the world helps the world learn about our brand. and that brand can then attract students to the traditional university who are going to pay the traditional fees. So that's one way of doing it. Also, I think as a practical matter, you can share the data about what's happening in the United States and in Canada, that we see that it's not a small, strange movement anymore. Different universities find different ways to relate this to their mission. My institution, College of the Canyons, we are an open enrollment institution. We accept all students. We have no requirements for admission. And we're very proud of that. We're very proud that we take all students. So releasing our information to the world is what we do. That's a core part of our mission, educating everybody. The second question around intellectual property and copyright I'll answer it in two ways. First of all, I think it's an ethical question. I think it's perhaps a cultural question. Cultural in the sense of academics and university, not national culture. I think people who work in universities are very comfortable with ethical inconsistency, being inconsistent about their ethics. If a student comes to me and gives me an exam that has information that the student has taken from someone else, and the student doesn't tell me that, I say that's cheating. Is that right? Is that what we do? You can't turn in your paper if you take it from somebody else. But then professors do that all the time. You know, the situation you're describing, that's cheating. It's stealing. But we do it all the time. So that's a different kind of conversation, I think. Moving forward, if I were, well, I'll say when I manage projects for the state of California to develop open educational resources, we start fresh, we start clean. Starting here, we're going to put material together that is clean, that is legal. We're going to only use material from today that has a Creative Commons license, or if you're producing it, we'll put your name on it, but with a Creative Commons license. So we're starting over, unfortunately. But that, if you want to build, if a university or a country wants to build an ecosystem of legal and ethical and open together, so that those foreign publishers won't come and try to take your material away and file a lawsuit against you, start fresh. That's my advice. But it's hard. It is hard. It's hard, and you need resources. You know, again, we're so fortunate today in Canada and in the United States that we have significant funding from private foundations and from the government. So we're able to do that. I'm able to hire staff who look at the IP. They train faculty about how to use a Creative Commons license. They work with our librarians to understand copyright and to only use material that is legal and has an open license. But yeah, you need resources for that. Yeah.
我们再一次掌声谢谢 Professor James。